writing page, or did you already?
You may have it already, but I can again. It's not very snazzy. It's My Writing Life, Yvonne Battle-Felton. So that will be where it's on. And if you go on Facebook, it should be telling you now, you should see this too. And it's that the content of this meeting is being sent to a third party. So that's Facebook. And there we go. Um, all right, so you should see that we are now live on Facebook. So I'm going to do a quick introduction. Hello and welcome to Telling It Like It Is, New Year, New Old and Stories, Storytelling Open Mic. Whether you're joining us in Zoom, on Facebook Live, or later, thanks so much for joining us and celebrating New Year's 2024 with us. Also, have remembered, I'm your host, Yvonne Battle-Felton. We're joined tonight by some amazing writers, and we're all in for a treat as we ring in the new year with stories, poetry, and more. Each reader has up to 10 minutes to read their piece. During the readings, I ask that we're all on mute. When the reading is finished, we can applaud virtually, type congratulations and thanks in a chat or on Facebook Live, and I'll say, and our next reader is, and the next reader will begin. They may or may not introduce themselves, tell you a bit about what they're going to read, or they may just dive right in. So there are no rules. You know that if you hear a fire drill, it is where you are and you want to respond accordingly. There are no emergencies planned that I know of, and so we are in for a night of celebrating stories. Where I'm at, it is 10:05 p.m. I'm in the UK, so we might be ahead of some of you, so we're like in the future, or we might be behind some of you, which is cool too. It might be the same time, which is even better. No matter where you are, we're celebrating New Year's together. So please type in the chat and tell us where you're joining from. If you're on Facebook, please type in Facebook, leave a comment and let us know where you're from. If it's already 2024 for you, let us know how that's going. So, speaking of time, we're going to take a short 5-minute comfort break between writers. And that's just so that you can get some tea, refresh a drink, get some coffee, replenish snacks, stretch, do whatever you need to do. And then we'll start again. And that's everything. So, the aim is to be finished before the ball drops, at least before it drops here in the UK. We'll see how we do. And without further ado, our first reader is Owen.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I'm Owen Townend, hail from Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, England, and I'm a writer of primarily speculative short fiction, although I'm dabbling more in longer forms of prose and poetry too. And yeah, generally speaking, I try and turn my hand to most
That's the only
things.
reason.
Oh, sorry. Okay. But yes, I tend to generally turn my hand to most things, and yeah, I'm part of a local writers group called Huddersfield Authors Circle. That's based within Huddersfield, within West Yorkshire. I know Yvonne through Kirklees because I'm one of the people heading up the Kirklees Author Forum Exchange, which Yvonne is a part of. And again, yeah, it's anything within the Kirklees area, which is a borough within West Yorkshire. And yes, without further ado, I will read something now. I have, all being well, a poem, a non-fiction piece, and hopefully another poem if I haven't gone over time. So I will start with something that I wrote, which is a poem from a gimmick, basically. And I'll let you kind of decide what I'm referring to by the end of this poem. And it's called A Bind. There's something in my teeth, thin, flat, white. Not just one layer, but many. A wad. Some big idiot did this. Laid me and the wad down on a table and pushed us together. The idiot's name might be O Townend. It's printed on the wad's corner. The one he stuck in my gob. I'm still on the table, weighed down by this foreign body. I can barely speak, so sorry if my tone sounds clipped. So, in case anybody was trying to guess what that was me writing about a paperclip. Just because somebody challenged me, and I thought, yes, I'll see if I can turn that into a personified poem. And I think I just about managed it. Okay, well, second piece, something that's appeared on the Huddersfield Authors Circle website. I'll share that in the chat in a couple of minutes. And it's based on my own experiences of losing writing through one way or another, be it kind of a clerical error, a technical error, or just simply leaving something behind in a physical place and forgetting about it for some reason. And just the absolute devastation you feel when you've lost something you think this might be significant. And so this is called losing the plot or misplacing works in progress. It starts with a gut wrench. There's usually some muttering of no, 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 which gradually raises in volume and pitch. There may even be a touch of computer screen thumping. Your work in progress is lost. But how? You forgot to save. You saved over it with something else. You pressed save, but the damn program didn't fulfill the request. That's all assuming, of course, that you're still using the latest technology. Water spoils ink, pencil marks fade, paper catches fire, and loose pages scatter in the wind. I've had the former happen to me, which is to say, technological mishaps. All it takes is a tired eye and clumsy fingers to lose something which made me rather proud. Then I curse myself, seethe as I search for other ways to recover the document, and without fail want to weep. The first time was a fantasy novel. I was 12 years old, and the 13th dimension had kept me occupied for a couple of years. This was a sprawling, high-concept adventure featuring elements borrowed from Lord of the Rings and shamelessly pilfered from the Edge Chronicles by Chris Riddell. I wasn't exactly proud of it at the time. It was more of a compulsion that never seemed to end. But it did end. Around the same time, I fancied myself a video game designer and wanted to play with franchises and licenses that weren't actually mine. One of these was the TV show Rugrats, for which I created a racing game. If I wasn't exactly enamored with the 13th dimension, then I was thoroughly neutral about Rugrat racers. Of course, this changed for the worse when I accidentally saved it under the 13th dimension title. Back then, Microsoft Word gave only one warning before going ahead with saving over the old file completely. I was distraught, but determined to find a way to undo the mistake. I must have consulted every tech-savvy person I knew, only to be faced with the crushing truth that the 13th dimension was gone for good. 100 or so pages of self-made story replaced by 3 pages of vague notes about a racing game I couldn't even make. I lost my fervour for designing video games after that too. Being young and dramatic, I refused to even try rewriting the 13th dimension. I had no confidence in my ability to recapture past creativity, which now seems so pointlessly tragic. Then again, I can't say how much of that plot would have survived editing, let alone a rigorous check for plagiarism. I do still remember certain scenes from it, though. Who knows? The 13th dimension might even make a comeback someday, at least in part. I was much less fussed 6 years later when I mislaid a poem. That being said, it was a good poem that played with form. I wrote 2 verses that mirrored each other on the same page, though in terms of emotional meaning, not rhyme. Since that time, I've done more daring things with poetic form, but at the tender age of 18, I was definitely proud of this mirror verse. Proud enough to send it as part of a portfolio to apply for my university creative writing degree at Sheffield Hallam. Somewhere along the way, I must have forgotten to save the copy I sent to Sheffield Hallam University anywhere else, and subsequently lost the original email with the attachment. This was me at my most lethargic. Even now, I can't be bothered seeking it out, not because it's a mere blank verse poem, but because it wasn't very special beyond its reflective gimmick. I can't even recall the title. All I know is it got me onto the degree where I ended up writing better stuff. Of course, the clumsiness doesn't stop there. At 30 years old, I have been known to lose edited novella chapters and diary entries simply because I forgot to check the date of the file I've just worked on and the file I want this to replace. No matter how small the losses, I curse my slow brain and fidgety hand for rendering the day's effort redundant. I pace the kitchen in a boyish sulk, waste half an hour skimming videos about restoring Word documents, conclude I'll just end up wrecking my properly saved work that way, and then I finally open up a new page and start fresh. I work to a deadline and surprise myself with a second wind. Often I'll fail to evoke the idealized first sentence and huff and puff my way through the opening paragraphs. But then I'll reach a phrase that drew a smile on the first go round and ride its creative optimism right to the end. I'll spend an extra 10 minutes primping this draft and read it aloud till I'm happy with it, saving every damn time I even add a single comma. Sometimes I'll rediscover the original lost copy later down the line, but normally I disregard it. It may sound like a cloying justification, but for me, the new draft is usually better. If it's worse, I'll start again with 2 points of reference and borrow/pilfer from both accordingly. The effort always feels tedious and brings my moment of stupidity into sharp focus. However, once I'm back to a strong finish, there is a secondary wave of accomplishment that is more comforting than the first. I lost my writing, but I eventually got it back again, and without anyone noticing too. Then, months ahead, I can't even remember what passages I rewrote, or indeed what words and sentences they were replacing. It all just merges together under the banner of I wrote this once.
You mentioned Southside Johnny.
Sorry. I will continue to write, and so will probably continue to lose certain writing due to negligence and incompetence. That's human nature, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not. Losing writing is always a gut wrench, but I have the stomach for it now. We writers must develop an iron constitution. And do I have a time for a short, well, middle-ish poem, Yvonne, would you say? Okay, right, I will get onto that. So the final piece, it's technically a prose poem, although you can't see that with the way I'm reading it out. And it's called The Overworked Figure. He passed the empty office space each morning on his path to work. A table and a chair in place, but no sign of a busy clerk. Till one day he found a huddled shape, a suited figure tucked right in. With stiff, pale hands and mouth agape, he saw it was a mannequin. This mannequin was primed to write, a pen and paper within reach, but it stared forward with no sight, no urge to act, and no speech. There was no change for one work week. The dummy employee did not move. Then the next Monday, a subtle tweak. The chair swiveled out of its groove. The mannequin faced him with no change to its vaguely startled demeanour. He suspected a joke for passers-by, set up by some eager cleaner. Still he hurried from this call to blow, flogged along by the task at hand until midweek he saw the show had been maliciously replanned. The mannequin's head had been thrown back, as if screaming in bold
Is the
despair.
thing. We're not on tap. We're not on mute.
Okay. The hands were painted red with black, the chest emblazoned with beware. He saw to number two reach out to and complain about such grim displays, but his attempts didn't get through to anyone for 30 days. And then he found the space abandoned, the dummy halfway out the door. The paper had some memorandum on it, while the pen was on the floor. He pressed against the glass to read it, but the handwriting was illegible. Stepping back, he had to concede it was something unknown, but regrettable. Then he heard back from the building's owner, who vowed to resolve his complaint. The culprit was some unhinged loner who was promptly fired and restrained. And the office space was rented, and the windows covered with blinds, but he still felt quite tormented by a fellow embittered mind. Bit of a workplace kind of poem based on something that I used to see when I was walking to work. Not actual mannequins, just an office space. And yes, I will put in the chat a link to the Huddersfield Authors Circle and also my X account. And yeah, thank you very much, Yvonne.
Thank you so much, Owen. And our next reader is Patrick.
Oh, good evening. This is Patrick Hahn. I'm speaking from Ghana in West Africa. I'm finding out that the internet coverage here is a little spotty, so I'm employing my plan B. I'm zooming in through my phone. I'm an adjunct professor of biology at the University of Maryland Global Campus, and also a graduate of the Hopkins Writing Program. And I'd like to read a selection from my most recent book, The Day the Science Died: COVID Vaccines and the Power of Fear. Late in the morning of Saturday, 26 February 2022, I put the finishing touches on my third book, which was about the toxic effects of drugging children for something called ADHD. It felt good finally to begin the process of getting this off my plate so I could devote more time to new projects. Even though I had included a chapter titled ADHD in the Time of COVID, writing about anything that happened before December of 2019 was starting to feel like ancient history. Dr. Healy had given me the name of a woman who had generously agreed to provide free copy editing services. And so I emailed her. And while I was waiting for her to reply, I decided to go for a walk. As I was trudging along Deep Dean Road, a path I had trodden hundreds of times before, my right arm suddenly felt cold and heavy and stiff, as if it had been pumped up with ice water. I tried shaking it off and resolved to finish my walk. But then my right foot began slipping out from under me with every step I took. Nothing like this had ever happened to me before, so I pulled out my cell phone and called my wife. "Come and get me right now," I told her. "What is wrong?" she asked. "Come and get me right now." It occurred to me that less than 30 days had elapsed since I'd had my booster shot. Medically, it had made no sense for me to get the vax. I'd already had the COVID, and I'd recovered fully in just a few days without any complications at all. But I got the shot to protect my health, because if I hadn't gotten it, I would have been unemployed and broke and homeless, and that would have been hazardous to my health. Now, at the age of 60, after 29 years of teaching without missing a single day of work due to illness, I was suffering from an ischemic stroke. I staggered back to the Starbucks at the corner of Deep Dean Road and Roland Avenue, and I sat down at one of their outdoor tables. And my wife arrived and drove me to the hospital where she worked, and they gave me the shot of their miracle clot-busting drug. And 3 hours later, I was sitting up in bed, eating a late lunch and feeling good as new. The next day, I asked the neurologist point blank, "Do you think the shot caused this?" His answer almost knocked me off my feet. He said, "Well, we're now seeing 18-year-olds coming in with strokes. And in those cases, it's pretty obvious what's causing it. But for someone your age, it's not so clear cut." Who could argue with that? What else can I tell you? The nurses were all friendly and welcoming. The docs were all polished, professional, and at the same time oozing empathy. The food was fresh, plentiful, and attractively presented on china plates, with both of my evening meals coming garnished with an atorvastatin tablet on prominently displayed on the tray. as if it were an after dinner mint, literally handing them out like candy. I didn't take the thing. And unfortunately, in my case, they had me on their low sodium diet, which meant no added salt. Although I could get all the packets of sugar I wanted. The bill for 2 days amounted to $9,435. Although my wife's insurance policy paid all but $15. I sometimes wonder why shepherding old people to their deaths is a job that merits health insurance coverage, but teaching the next generation of young people is not. But that's a topic for another book. After my release, Dr. Healy kindly offered to take a look at my medical records. After reviewing them, he emailed me. I'd imagine your blood pressure was a little bit up in the ER, but the diastolic looked great. Hard to see what you should do except not research it all too much and keep walking. Indeed, compared to a lot of people, I got off lightly. And I have no doubt that during my time in hospital, I received the very best care modern medicine has to offer. Although I would have greatly preferred not to have needed it in the first place. Thanks for listening.
Thanks so much, Patrick. And our next reader is Marina.
Hi, everybody. I can't look at the screen and at the same time look at the chat, so I can't really tell who's here that I know, but hi, Yvonne and yeah, Glenn upstairs. I expect most other people are people that I don't know, so I'm going to begin with a poem that is a kind of introduction to me. It's also written for all those people who've ever got my name wrong. It kind of grinds my gears that I think I've got a fairly simple name, but I'm very, very often misnamed. All the other names that sound a bit like mine, but actually are not. So it's a kind of, it's to all of those people. Please don't be one of those people. Hi, my name is Marina. It's not Maria, Marilyn, Marianne, or Marie. I'm Marina, like the princess, and yes, also like the car. And yes, I was named for Stingray, and no, I wouldn't say I'm a star, but watch this space. I'm from fish and chips and fizzy pop on Sundays. From skinned knees and broken biscuits, I am olive skin and boyish looks. Blue Peter, Ilkley Moore, and way too many books. This bright Belle-Isle baby grew sharp beast and teeth, learned how to smile, hide the chaos beneath. I am Marina Bambina Antonietta Spalavash, figlia di Vittorio, dalla Catundat, figlia di Greci ma nata fuori, forged in parched Pulian poppy fields. I am pine needles and plum tomatoes. I am the language of love, amore miei, from baci sotto le stelle, kisses under the stars. Puffuned on the terraces and matured in Mickey Woods, I'm from here and there and who knows where, from pipe dreams and escape schemes, from always wishing I was elsewhere. I write to remember, to tease out the truth, to ask stupid questions, re-examine my youth, from awkward teen tomboy to using punk as a decoy. I'm the sum of my years, not the product of my fears. I'm a feminist, an eminist, talk shit when I'm pissed. I'm scared and I'm scarred, but I'm still here and I don't intend to go quietly. I write because talking gets me into trouble. Because folks seem vexed by complexity, I write to be heard above the ceaseless clatter, to be seen through glass ceilings which even now refuse to shatter. I write because the world is changing and I need to understand. Lost in my thoughts, confused, overwrought, I'm writing my way back to dry land. So that is me. I'm gonna do without the the very sweary poem. I must admit that I do use swears quite liberally in my work, and Yvonne and I met at a poetry night in the library in Dewsbury where we're not allowed to swear. So some of these I picked because they have the odd one in there. And this one isn't really a swear, but it's yeah, it feels like it's an important and true story. And it's one of the first poems I ever wrote. And it's for a friend of mine who sadly couldn't be here. I like to keep her in memory. And I wrote this because there isn't a bench or anywhere to go and remember her. So this is for Julie. I was barely 15. You were queen of the scene, all jet black hair and fearless freckles, that big Belle-Isle smile and razor sharp heckles. You blazed a trail, set the evenings alight. I learned to dance in those sparks, be a bit less uptight. You took charge, held court, set the trends. I learned that smart women like us didn't need lots of friends, just a few good ones. Then I left for uni. We wrote. The years skipped by, but when did those clouds start to darken your sky? When did a few cheeky cocktails for fun become bottles in handbags and dinner for one? I was 30 years old when Dave rang and told me you'd gone. He said, what with the pain and the pills and the rest, you'd moved on. I never thought you'd go quietly, though. How could those smart lips ever run out of quips? It's still hard to believe that you cashed in your chips. They say the man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes the man. And though I really have tried, I just don't understand how the drink drove a bus through the life you had planned. Your wake was surreal. I didn't know how to feel, so I just said goodbye. And your dad was so choked that he barely spoke. And when he did, he said, thanks for the cards, but I found it so hard, I couldn't read them. So the lass took a glass, and the glass took a glass, and then the glass took the lass. And as Icarus learned, those who soar can get burned, but girl, that ride was smoking hot while it lasted. So you rest in peace, Jules. And I guess I haven't spent very long talking, and that was my plan all along. My cunning plan was to not talk too much so there'd be more room for poetry. And I'm going to end with something a little bit lighter because it is New Year's Eve after all, and we don't want to go into the new year crying. So this is my, if you like, signature poem. And I wrote it about 10 years ago, and it was meant to be a painting, actually. I was trying to paint something for my daughters because I was concerned about all sorts of how the media influences them as they were growing into young women, and I failed miserably to paint anything that said anything at all, but I ended up writing quite a bit, and then it eventually became this poem. So here we go. This is my manifesto. So hitch up your britches and prepare for some flack, because our lush lady gardens are under attack. See, we live in a world of pubic propriety where superfluous hair is the scourge of society, where these unshaven pits become objects of hate, and my beautiful bush in its natural state is taboo. Well, I'm tired of tweezers. I'm pissed off with plucking. I'm sick of being told by a whole load of fucking fascists that the body I have isn't fit to be seen. That I need to buy razors and waxes and creams and patiently wait for the man of my dreams. What a crock. Because instructions are fine in recipe books, but we don't need instructions for cleaning our nooks and crannies, much less our fannies. And who the hell has the time to clean behind fridges? And what kind of mind wants to Botox our ridges? Why are we tying ourselves up in knots? Assaulting our armpits and bleaching our butts? Is it really all part of some patriarch's plot? Are they keeping us busy, distracted by fluff, whilst lining their pockets from selling us stuff we don't need? Femfresh, vajazzles, skin lightening creams, they're holding us back, destroying our dreams. And I choose to refuse. I choose singing and dancing and snogging and laughing. I'll not waste a singular minute more faffing about with hot wax and tit tape. And so what if my eyebrows are losing their shape? I am free. I'm embracing my curves too and loving my lines. These chipped teeth and crow's feet, they're really just signs of a life well lived, of taking some risks, of surviving my youth. My scars are a picture of courage and truth. And as for this hair, well, I'll wear it with pride. And I won't cover up when I venture outside, won't go for a trim when I'm off for a swim, won't get my teeth whitened or anything tightened. And I'll style out the stares and the curious looks. And I'll read even more of those feminist books. Thank you very much. And Happy New Year to everybody. All the best for 2024. Thanks, Yvonne.
Oh, Marina, thank you so much. And Happy New Year and all the best for 2024. I also did not know about the library rule for no cursing, which is super funny because I host an event at the library and I had no idea. So thank you for letting us know that one. And our next reader is Glenn.
Yvonne, could I ask you something really quick?
Sure, Gloria.
Do I need to sign up to read or?
You do. I can put you on the waiting list.
Oh, darn.
I will add you to the waiting list, and then that way, if there's time afterwards, then I will let you know.
Okay. How did I miss that? Did I not let you know I wanted to read, or did I need to type my name in? Or
it was you would have emailed me, and then I would have emailed you back to confirm it.
oh, I did email you, but
I'll
did
have
I
a
have
look.
to? Oh,
Yeah, I'll have a look. But our next reader is Glenn, and then we also have a break. So in the break, I'll have a look.
okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Glenn. My day job is in IT, and the fun bit of what I do is music production. I've started doing poetry as a way to write lyrics for the music that I'm writing. I'm just back from Trinidad, so a bit jet lagged. I live in the UK, and seeing that it's still Christmas, I'm going to do a poem from what I call the Christmas collection called A Trini Christmas. And then I'm going to do another one about Carnival in Trinidad. A Trini Christmas. The arrival of the northerly, coupled with the cloudless night, encourages paranderos to don cardigans or ponchos. It's 1:10 in the morning, and out we piled with stifled giggles from many vehicles. Muffled jingles, odd rattle, and a dull thud emanate from the box space. Accidental twangs are hurriedly smothered. The rolling beads of the maracas eventually draws the inevitable call to silence. Shh. The security light, given a night pass, allows feet to stealthily assemble at the green heart door, trimmed in fine gold tinsel, a fresh poinsettia to garland, and at its base a winter wonderland theme mat. Fuego al cañón, Fuego al cañón, para que repite nuestro parandón. Voices erupt and the rhythms roll like a pyroclastic flow. Surrounding curtains twitch to life, as do bedroom, hall, and living room lights. The front door dances open. The front door dance open its hinges to reveal sleepy eyes that joyfully greet us. Annunciation, Levanta, Nanciento, Aguinaldo, all in attendance. Come wet your whistle. Fire one for the season. Guapo, Gaita, and then a manzanare. Pastels, black cake, punch or creme, sorrel or ginger beer. Some add in measure as the crescendo draws near. Castilian, Estribo, Galeron, Despacita, and as we go, a parang soca medley to end this show. Same time, but another year. Same house, but another year. Goodbye, my friends, we are leaving. Will it be the same house, but another year? Spirits high, we take flight into the night. Thank you. Okay, so this is one of the poems that I'm trying to turn into a soca song. Rather tricky. It's called More of the Same, and it's about Carnival and how in Trinidad we celebrate Carnival. Year on year, we jump as one, congregating under hot sun, taking bun up in the savannah, down by the square or Arapita. If you don't want my verbal slaughter, bartender, just pour rum, forget the water. We don't designate a driver for the carnival. Come September, we working out hard, down for spin class, jogging, and Zumba. If you want to last the season, you will need some serious stamina. 1st of Jan costume done pay for. All-inclusive fete, that's we flavor. Tell my boss I go file the papers after Carnival. Carnival Monday, it's 1 a.m. We take to the roads dirty as hell, caked in chocolate, paint, oil, or mud. Home is a Formula One pit stop job. Every city street is our playground. Bling bling costumes storming the stage now. Big trucks blasting sounds of soca for the carnival. Thank you. And I'd like to wish you all a Happy New Year and all the best.
Happy New Year, and thank you for singing.
You're welcome.
And our next reader is JT.
JT here. JT Hine is the name. And I'm going to read you a short story that I wrote some time ago. And it is, in fact, the 7th day of Christmas. And this is a Christmas story. And I hope you like it. I will put my website in the chat after I finish reading, but it's easy to remember, jthine.com. So if you can spell JT Hine, you can find my website with my books. I'm basically a novelist, and I write short stories every week just to keep my skills going. But I've got 6 novels out now in 2 different trilogies, and you're welcome to try them out. There are sample chapters on the website. And here it goes. This story is called Marina and the Witch, and the setting is a typical Italian country town. And I will introduce you as we go. Marina and the Witch. 2 children lie quietly in their small bedroom in a town in southern Italy. A car rumbles across the cobblestones outside. The dim light from the street lamps in the town square leaks through the shutters and casts a starry pattern on the wall. On a shelf near the window, some dolls sit in a neat row, staring at the boy in the rumpled bed across the room. The boy puts his hand in front of the dots of light on the walls, making some go out in the shadow. Marina, are you awake? He whispers to the girl in the bed near the window. Yes, Pedro. Marina turns over and rests an olive-skinned cheek on her hand. But 4-year-old boys should be sleeping. Big sisters, too. Pietro sits up on his knees. I heard Papa say he'd spank you if you get up again. Hush, I don't want to talk about it. Why aren't you sleeping anyway? The Befana. Even in the half light, Marina can see the excitement on his round face. Will she really come? Of course, Pietro, but only if you go to sleep. Marina has never seen the Befana, but she is not ready to stop believing. Tell me again what she looks like. Like a witch. You know, an old woman with a wrinkled face, gray hair, and a big nose. She wears a bandana under her cone hat and a white apron over her peasant skirt. And she wears several sweaters with different colors. How can you tell she's a good witch? Because she smiles a lot. And besides, a bad witch wouldn't carry a big sack of toys, would she? Pietro shrugged. Does she really visit all the children in one night? Yes, and this is it, January 5th. How does she do it so fast? On her broomstick. I want to peek. If you don't go to sleep, she won't come at all. But we stayed up on Christmas Eve when Babbo Natale came. Daddy Christmas is what Italian children call Santa Claus. That was for midnight mass at church, not for Babbo Natale. Papa says we fell asleep halfway through the service anyway. She slips from her bed and reaches to the floor by his bed. Here, you dropped your teddy. Now lie quietly and try to sleep. Moments later, Pietro's steady breathing tells her that she is alone with her thoughts. The Befana has her worried. The good witch only brings gifts to those who have been good. Naughty children get lumps of coal. Lying in her bed, Marina thinks of the good things and the bad things she's done. She remembers the time she hit her little brother. She was so sorry she hurt him that she cried even after he stopped crying. She helped Mama clean up after Christmas dinner, but she dropped a plate and it broke. She went to fetch her father's toolbox, but spilled the contents down the stairs. Papa never did find the set of tiny screwdrivers. The more she thinks, the more it seems that all her good deeds were canceled out by mistakes. She wonders what the Befana will bring her. The dots of streetlight over Pietro's bed remind her of stars. She likes stars. They help her think happy thoughts. Well, Befana, she says to herself, you know I tried. Can't change anything now. She rolls over with a sigh and lies as still as she can. Signor Visone's rooster next door wakes her with its crowing. Bright pencil beams of sunlight cross the room and burn white dots in the wall. She smells fresh bread from the bakery in the square. Pietro is still sleeping. It's the 6th of January. Befana! Marina jumps from her bed. The aroma of freshly ground coffee and her parents' voices draw her to the kitchen. She stops at the door. Mama, did the Befana come? Her mother smiles. See for yourself, Marina. Marina's heart races like a motorcycle as she opens the living room door. She gasps. The prettiest bicycle she has ever seen glitters in the sunlight. Shiny pink with white tires and a woven white basket on the handlebars. Mama, Papa, come see. She spins around to face her parents, who are already in the doorway. Isn't the Befana wonderful? Her mother crouches down and hugs her. Not as wonderful as my good girl. You earned the bicycle, dear. But I broke and spilled so many things. You keep trying, Marina, says her father. That's what counts. Thank you. Now you can go ahead and take a break, right? Yvonne,
that's right.
over.
Thank you so much, JT, and thank you for the holiday story. So everyone, we're going to have a 5-minute break. This is your chance to, I don't know, get a drink, get a snack, stretch your legs, and it is 10:47 where I'm at. So we will be back at 10:52, again, where I'm at. So 5 minutes. See you soon. Thanks so much for coming. Feel free, if you haven't already, to pop where you're from or where you're joining in into the chat. If you want to share words for the writers and congratulations and thanks and all of that, please pop it in the chat. And yeah, see you soon. Okay, everyone, welcome back. It's now 10:52, so I hope that you are settled in and ready to hear more stories and poems and maybe potential singing, we'll see. But our next reader is Lori. I'm just waiting to see if you're back. There you are, Lori.
I'm back.
Over to you whenever you're ready.
I'm ready. I'm Lori Kay, and my brand new book is Confessions of a Rock and Roll Name Dropper, My Life Leading Up to John Lennon's Last Interview. It's not a Beatles bio, it's my memoir, the story of my early rock radio-related life and career wrapped around what tragically turned out to be John Lennon's last day on the planet, December 8th, 1980, just over 43 years ago, which is also when I co-conducted the RKO radio interview with him and Yoko at the Dakota in New York, mere hours before he was shot and killed. My book, of course, features many details and quotes and amazing impressions from that awesome interview with John Lennon, as well as from a number of meetups with other musicians I've been lucky enough to talk with over the years. Everyone from former Fab Four members George Harrison and Paul McCartney, plus Beatles producer George Martin, Beatles idol Little Richard, and tons more favorite artists and bands of mine over the years, from the Ramones to Talking Heads. And when it comes to my life story, I use my book to explain how music made it possible for me, starting out as a toddler, to successfully survive my difficult, dysfunctional family upbringing. And thanks so much ever since to the parts that sex and drugs and rock and roll have all played in my life. So now I'll read you the first few pages of my introductory first chapter. It's called Imagine, My Lead Up to Lennon. And like every single one of my book's 18 chapters, it's named after a meaningful rock, pop, or show tune. Chapter 1, Imagine, My Lead Up to Lennon. On December 8th, 1980, I was overflowing with excitement, anticipation, and disbelief as I approached the Dakota Apartments on Manhattan's Upper West Side. I was there to play my part in John Lennon's one and only U.S. radio interview following the release of his and Yoko Ono's brand new album, Double Fantasy, and the voices in my head were telling me that this was without a doubt about to become the best day of my life that I could ever even begin to imagine, and that I was truly the luckiest person on the planet. Visions of thousands of screaming Beatles fans packed into Dodger Stadium so many years earlier swirled through my brain like milkshake in a blender, and I could barely keep myself from swaggering down the sidewalk as my associates and I approached the security booth area right outside the Dakota's entrance. I'd flown out one day earlier from the West Coast as part of our three-member RKO radio team, along with an executive from Warner Brothers Geffen Records. And although our RKO trio had already worked together on a number of attention-getting interviews and radio rock specials over the past few years, including heading off to London just the year before to hang out with Paul McCartney and Wings, this would be an entirely different ballgame. After all, we were on the verge of meeting up with someone who'd literally disappeared from the music business for the previous 5 years, John Lennon. John had been hunkered down in the role of ultra-happy house husband and attentive father ever since his 18-month-long lost weekend, the time during which he was, by his own admission, miserably separated from Yoko and living in Los Angeles. And he hadn't recorded or released any new music in at least the 5 years since. But now Double Fantasy, the new album created with his oftenly critically reviled wife Yoko Ono, was his way of opening the door to the 80s and a whole new era. No one else in the world could even begin to imagine how it felt to realize that we were about to become the only American radio gang chosen to help John and Yoko usher that era in. The build-up to our interview had already been somewhat mind-blowing. At one point, while everything was still in the early planning stages, I got a call from someone asking the date, year, and time of my birth. because apparently Yoko was working with her personal astrologer, who was going to take all the information collected and then use it to put together an astrological chart that would then determine the best possible day for our Dakota meetup. Of course, the surprising thing is that even with all that intimate information, and despite the fact that John and Yoko had already planned to head to Hawaii and the West Coast during that time period, somehow Monday, December 8th, 1980, a date that will live forever in freakish rock and roll infamy, was chosen. Our flight to the Big Apple alone had been a total trip, with celebrities like British actor Anthony Hopkins and former heavyweight champion Ken Norton on board. Although I barely had the opportunity to say hello to Hopkins, who had just starred in the widely celebrated film The Elephant Man, I was excited to meet Ken Norton. Standing next to the massive boxer as he towered over me seemed to put my whole life in perspective. And I remember that as we shook hands, it felt like my digits were being enveloped by a huge Hormel ham. My main goal on that flight to New York was to come up with an amazing list of questions for John and Yoko. We'd been warned well in advance that asking about John's time with the Beatles was a definite no-no. So as I wrote out my thoughts regarding the recording process and inspiration behind the various songs on Double Fantasy, I also shuffled through the Playboy magazine interview with Lennon that had just hit the newsstands. And with each page, I became more and more convinced that I was about to be torn to shreds by my idol. It seemed to me that John had not only been adamant about talking to the writer about not wanting to talk about the Beatles, but his past in general. And I began to get the scary feeling that we were all about to be slammed by his superior intellect and wit. I knew also that his personality was notoriously complex, and the last thing I wanted was for him to think that some foolish, undereducated fangirl who still saw him as the smart Beatle, while letting stupid questions with obvious answers pour from my mouth. Fortunately, I was able to get over at least some of my insecurities. That night before the interview, the four of us from RKO and the record company were all sitting up together as though we were having a slumber party in one of our rooms at the Plaza Hotel, drinking hot chocolate and savoring the moment as we nailed down last-minute details. This helped me see myself as more than ready. Staying at the Plaza was especially exciting and coincidental, considering that nearly 17 years before, Beatles manager Brian Epstein had booked himself and the band there for their very first U.S. hotel stay, arriving at New York's Kennedy Airport just a couple days prior to their debut appearance on The Ed Sullivan Show. While we waited in John and Yoko's outer office the next day for our interview to get underway, their assistants filled us in on what the couple had been up to so far that morning, letting us know that they were just finishing up with photographer Annie Leibovitz from Rolling Stone magazine. Leibovitz had spent the last couple hours upstairs with them snapping pictures, including one that would become the most iconic shot ever of the famous couple, a naked John Lennon curled up on the carpet in a fetal position wrapped around a fully clothed Yoko Ono, which basically defined the very nature of their relationship. I'd actually had my own encounter, more like a run-in, with Annie Leibovitz just a couple years earlier in Seattle. As a radio newscaster, anchor, reporter at King AM, the major top 40 station in town at the time, I'd been begged by a local publicist to attend the famous photographer's University of Washington show opening and then do a quick interview with her that would air as part of my newscast the next day. Even though I had to be at work at 5 o'clock the next morning, I sat in the audience that night throughout Annie's lengthy lecture and then approached her afterward. But instead of being appreciative and accommodating, Leibovitz loudly accused me of lying through my teeth, asking why in the world anyone would book a radio interview with a photographer. I was mortified and got away from her as fast as I could. Despite my initial reaction so many months later, when I learned that Annie Leibovitz was working right upstairs with John and Yoko, I was certainly not about to let the possibility of running into her at the Dakota dampen my spirits in the least. No worries, though. Fortunately, I was never forced to encounter that photographer again. Thank you. And there's lots more of my first chapter and, of course, my entire book. So I hope you'll check it out and my book's website, confessionsofArockandrollnamedropper.com.
Thank you so much, Lori. And are you going to, if you can please put the name of the book and where we can find it in the chat, that would be wonderful.
You betcha.
Thank you. So Michael is not here. He did say he had some Wi-Fi issues, but if he comes in later, we will let him read. In the meantime, our next reader is Liz.
Thank you, Yvonne. I'm Liz Goffrow from Nottingham, New Hampshire. I'm a fiction writer, and I also write poetry, although I don't really know what I'm doing, but I write it anyway. The piece I'm going to read is a cannibalized piece of a failed novel. So this is a short. Her mother's eulogy. The daughter sat in the front of the church as the minister gave her mother's eulogy, listening intently for any mention of her own name. Her mother had been a churchgoer, and the minister seemed to know her well. Her 45-year membership in Hancock Congregational Church, her work on the Altar Guild, memberships in the Eastern Star and the American Association of University Women, the many layettes for church world service. No matter how intently she listened, the daughter could not seem to place the person the minister was eulogizing as her mother, as though he had inadvertently begun the eulogy of another dedicated parishioner, and upon realizing his mistake, had decided to continue, dedicated parishioners being pretty much interchangeable. The daughter remembered going to church with her parents every Sunday as an ordeal to be endured. Caught between the two of them in the pew, the minister's voice rendering her completely invisible, her bowels threatening unexpected activity. Now, the church was full, the elderly enjoying the camaraderie of funerals. Oh, they would say the most thoughtless things after the service, these women in 30-year-old hats, exclaiming over a family resemblance long gone, recalling her mother's Concord grape punch and love of flower arranging. She turned her head to look at her father, who was seated on her left. He did not appear to be listening to the minister, his face without expression, his eyes bemused. She wondered if the minister had consulted him about the content of the eulogy. She and her father had not talked much when he called her with the news. Just the time of death, which had been imminent for a number of days, and the requisite details of the funeral. Her mother would be pleased, she supposed, that there was no mention of her antecedents in the eulogy, as though she had sprung full-grown from U.S. soil at the age of 27, with no long-dead parents buried in the family plot in Nova Scotia, and no sisters and brothers and nieces and nephews cluttering up her family tree. During those last few weeks before her death, the mother had written her eulogy herself, in longhand, on her own blue stationery, and the daughter had known nothing of it until after she had read the printed version in the Boston Globe. After she had already read the printed version, her father showed her the one her mother had written and asked if she wanted a photocopy. She would make the trip to the hospice once a week, to sit at her mother's bedside with her hands folded in her lap, wondering when she should say her goodbyes, when she should say those important things which go unsaid for years and must be said when a life is ending. But she did not know what hers were, and she wanted to give her mother the chance to say hers first. And so she waited, hour by hour, in the dimly lighted room, watching her mother's face and listening to the small, ordinary sounds of nurses caring for the dying. The daughter turned her attention back to the eulogy. There it was at last. Her name. Her mother's only child. And then the service was over. And I will put my link tree into the chat, and that has all of my links, website, books, Amazon authors page, all of that stuff. So that is linktr.ee/EGAUFF.
Liz, thank you so much. Wonderful.
You're welcome. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. And our next reader is Mayurakshi.
Hello, Yvonne. Hello, everybody. My name is Mayurakshi Chaturvedi. I'm joining from Calcutta, India, and I will be reading a few poems. The first poem is called Privileged. Her life is better than yours. She wakes up early, has to start around 5 in the morning. She has maids doing all her work. They do everything. What her husband eats for breakfast, what her child carries for tiffin. They clean and press her husband's outfit for work. They serve him the breakfast too. They clean his house, wash the dirty dishes after he's done. She just has to sit with him and sip her tea. His life is very hard. Chaos and noise moving up in the world in this day and age. He has to drive to work every morning in the tight traffic. He's always stressed about moving large chunks of money for powerful people who cannot be bothered to count their own. He has to wear his warm suit every day and sweat through his expensive shirt, his necktie tightening every time he speaks, suffocating him in the tropical heat. Much like his other responsibilities. He has to remain unfrustrated through it all. Look down from the window sometimes at the traffic underneath, not moving at all. She's doing really well, though, much better than him. She's sitting at home quietly in front of the television. She loves watching the dramatic lives of rich housewives all day and drowning her aspirations in her cups of tea. The next poem is called Good Hair. Long and shiny, she has her grandmother's hair. Full of stories, the color has started to fade slightly near the temples. Her waiting takes forever, twisting the strands after lathering them in a sweet-smelling coconut oil. The coils weigh heavy on her head, like a wet rag. She's almost afraid her neck would snap. She has to uncoil the bird's nest before washing the oil, repeatedly with a scrub made from sugar and coffee grounds, and finally with neem water for best results. She sits afterwards in the sun, drying her hair in the hot Bengal afternoon. Her hair feels lighter on those days, when a slow wind starts blowing right before the sun sets and a raging summer storm appears out of nowhere. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for reading and for sharing this with us. And our next reader is Erica.
Okay, thank you so much. These are two excerpts from a memoir, my memoir. Okay. High on fumes and opportunity. I am carved from marble, a smooth statue with carefully etched detail and cascading curves. I am painted from oil, a moody cityscape, a gorgeous view of a city lit, electrified by a love for life and lust. I descend from immigrants escaping the pogroms 2 generations before I was born into a luxurious home with satin sheets and chaise lounges infested with bitterness because nothing, even having everything, is ever enough. Sprung from the poisoned earth, a lone bloom in a decaying mess, fought to sprout and survived. I am reborn in the city that never sleeps. I am full of moxie and dreams, rejecting the rat race and competitive pace. Artistic expression takes precedence over materialism and fame. In my boots, I strut up and down the avenues and east side streets below 14th. Bootleg CDs sold on blankets and sweet peanuts roasting on the corner of Canal Street, singing show tunes at 88's and Don't Tell Mamas, jazz at Diana's, seeing experimental theater at PS 122, soy burgers at Jaffa, espresso and cigarettes at Orlin, and waitressing at the Cafe Centosette, frequented by regulars and downtown theater goers. Being on the fringe intoxicates. I am high on life and opportunity. I am sprung from the oak tree outside our home on 540 State Street in Boerum Hill, Brooklyn, the brownstone where we lived, where I basked in your love, eating eggs together, the ones you scrambled, in the terracotta kitchen, sunny breakfast nook overlooking the backyard, where the neighborhood cat did circus tricks on the fence, and we laughed. Your eyes twinkled when you looked at me. The oak tree roots reached out, bracing my fall, where your roots and mine entwined for a while, till our end savagely ripped me from our fertile ground. I am the city of angels, sunshine, warm breezes, jacaranda trees, marquees and neon signs selling dreams, an endless paradise full of moxie and dreams. My silver lucite heels click across the Hollywood Boulevard highway overpass, up high above the traffic. The massive sprawl of the city intoxicates. I am high on fumes and opportunity. Okay, that's one. Thank you. Thank you. And I'll do one more. Okay. Not on the ward. A stark ward, fluorescent, lights blind, people mill, loud, paranoid. My thoughts race and rhyme. The only constant is the unknown, and this terrifies me. Sometimes a darkness washes over me. I fill in the blanks with catastrophe. If the burden of heartbreak is never to cease, if there is no end point. That sentiment is like living with an endless stream of venom scorching through my veins. I'm grateful to be alive. I am amazed, for instance, that a child's laughter leaped in through the open window at the exact moment I needed it, stopping me. The staff treats us like we have committed a heinous act for having a mental illness, as if it is our fault. The smoke break is delayed. People pace frantically, pleas in the form of tears and anger ring out in deafening decibel. The people in charge take pleasure in our discomfort, threatening to deprive us of our only joy. We are finally corralled like cattle into a smoking cage. We try to soothe our psychic pain with sweet nicotine. The days are endless. locked inside, deprived of all things comforting, loved ones, music, fresh air, nature, rest impossible, coarse white sheets, pungent from bleach, itchy blanket, the bitter pills. They dose us till catatonic. The best medicine is compassion. It doesn't exist, not on the ward. In group therapy, we share similar stories. We come from abusive families. We struggle with drugs and alcohol. We've lost our jobs, our homes, our friends, and our children. On paper, we are very different. Ages, gender, identities, backgrounds, socioeconomic brackets, and diagnosis. But we are the same. Here, our infliction binds us. We are on the verge of being lost in our illness forever. We have been abandoned. The best medicine is compassion, but it doesn't exist, not on the ward. The click of the orderly pens, their weapons. We do everything in our power to avoid getting written up from fear of never being released. We get caught talking about one of the orderlies, her socks looking like the Wicked Witch of the West. How fitting for her. We are written up, and one of our precious cigarette breaks taken away. The best medicine is compassion, but it doesn't exist, not on the ward. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And our next reader is Vicky.
Hi, thank you. It was 1988. I was 29, and I was running head down along 57th Street in Manhattan, where I lived, in the pouring rain from the subway to the Parker Meridian Hotel to meet my parents. It was about 11 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Eve. When I got to the hotel because of the rain, I threw myself against the revolving doors and I almost barreled straight into a 20-foot high pink Christmas tree. I stared up at those pink branches, pink snow, pink cherubs, pink balls, and I thought, ugh, it's so pink. It is so fake. And I thought proudly how I had gone out into the streets and bargained my tree from an enterprising young French-Canadian named Jean, who said that he had chopped my tree down in the wilds of Quebec and hauled it all the way to New York City in his very own truck. I carried my tree home over my shoulder in a large net bag. Every day I filled my tree's personal green and red metal water bowl. You're always so protective of your first tree if you're a person who celebrates Christmas, aren't you? Just like you're so protective of your first job. Your first apartment, you could actually invite people to. You never forget the first time after moving out of your parents' house, you catch yourself calling that place you happen to live in home. That Christmas, I had invited my parents to my home in New York City for their first Christmas away from their home in Pennsylvania ever. I was going to show my parents. I could make Christmas. I could put up a tree. I can make a Christmas dinner. Yes, I'm an only child. And my mom was an only child. My father's family didn't speak to itself. So every Christmas, it had always been just me, my parents, and whichever of her cousins my mom decided to invite. They were all pretty much interchangeable. They were all over 90 with dead husbands and no teeth. I really wanted that Christmas to be a little less geriatric. Also, it was going to be my dad's first Christmas sober. When he hit 62, he decided, well, his doctor decided, told him if he had another drink, he'd be a dead man. Okay, so at 62, he decided to go to this dry out place in the rural, middle of rural Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere, this old, falling apart mansion. This dry out place was called Chit Chat because you had to spend your every waking minute in the community room making small talk with strangers because alcoholics tend to isolate. Well, not that that was my dad. My dad was life of the party. He loved it. He would be out there in the common room, meeting the ex-priests and ex-rocks musicians. And when my mom and I would visit, he would introduce us to everyone. Also, when my mom and I visited, we had to watch these films called The Enablers. And these films were supposed to show how my mom and I were part of the problem. My mother did not like these films. And the worst part was we always saw people we knew in the audience. She would see fellow teachers and former students. Another thing in rehab is that you have these exercises, right? So my dad sent a letter separately to my mom, one to me, asking us to write down everything he had done that had hurt us. And I know it's a stereotype, but for me, it was true. I wrote those things in a letter. And when I sent them to my dad, I just felt like this heavy weight was lifted. We never even discussed the letter. I don't know if he read it. But we started to talk, and we really had not had a normal conversation in years. Well, I guess I did all the talking because I probably talked about, my crazy career as an actor and my crazy boyfriends. So staying there in the lobby of the Parker Meridian Hotel, I was really looking forward to my parents' visit. So I was standing there, and all of a sudden, somebody at the desk called out my name and said there was a phone call for me. Now, this is, back before cell phones. I thought, well, are my parents here already? Are they up in the room? We were supposed to meet in the lobby. So I get on the phone, and it's my mom. Oh, she says, we're still here at Penn Station. Your father had a fall. He is out cold. We're going to Bellevue. And she hung up. I went out to the curb, no lift back then either, hailed a cab for Bellevue. Now, I don't know what it's like now, but back then it was this beat to hell civil service ambiance public hospital. I found the emergency room. It was a very scary, unsettling place, let's just say. And I went up to the desk. I gave my mom's name, asked where she was. And the person at the desk said, oh, she's in the storeroom with a priest. Get in there. So I went into the storeroom, and yes, my mom and the priest were sitting on these plastic chairs, and my mom was gripping her luggage and her wallet. And the priest said, hold on to your wallet. Hold on to your wallet. Outside this room, it's a war zone. There are people who will take everything you have. And then he said he was going to go out and see what was going on with my dad. So he left. And I said to my mom, what happened at the train station? And she said they got lost. They went up and down steps. But finally, they saw the light of day. They headed up a stairway. They got to the top. And she said she looked up. My dad was gone. He was on the ground. And people stopped and held umbrellas because of the rain. And there weren't any cell phones. So someone got my mom to a payphone. And somebody said, does anyone know CPR? The door opened and the priest came in and a woman doctor in a white coat. And the doctor said, I'm very sorry. It was a massive coronary. Nothing we could do. Just so you know, the state requires we do an autopsy to show we were not at fault. And she invited us to go into the operating room, which we did. We left everything behind with the priest. And my mom said goodbye to my dad. He looked like he was sleeping. He was lying on this table, the operating table, with a big sheet over him. And the young emergency room doctors were standing against the wall waiting for us to get out. And I said, I don't know if he could hear me. I suppose not, but I said, I'm really glad you got better. And I'm glad we could talk.
Vicky, what a beautiful story, what a beautiful telling, and thank you so much for sharing it with us. And because we are racing through stories, we have gone to our wait list. So I'm going to let people from the wait list read, and then I will close this out. So our first reader is Aisatu.
Hi, my name is Aisatu, and I am coming to you from Fort Liberty, North Carolina, formerly Fort Bragg. My first poem is, I guess, my signature poem. Who dares to greet an old, bald woman, veteran of life and someone else's liberty, a sage, elder in training, whose uniform now worn is freedom? Chariots are supposed to be a red Honda, makes her and vehicle both on one accord, rolling towards adventure with anticipation, easy on the eyes and gas, easy on the eyes. Who dares to have courage enough, recognizes her presence and power without fear of dissolving, a serial senior now, realizing They have been in the company of experience rightfully earned on the perimeter of greatness, a sister who has learned much, enjoys life most days when darkness fails to prevail again, daring to shave her head bald, solidarity to those without choice, needing to see her beauty and bravery going against the grain of this society, not waiting for acceptance without fear this time of rejection. Mother was born Alabama, raised like stalks of okra or corn, third eldest of 15 who dared live. Her house stood where her grandmother took in children like wayward young ones, needing warm beds. She learned to cook dishes, wrung necks of chickens, Sunday best day to eat, meals prepared with God in mind. After sermons, preachers sought souls to save. No one washed dirty clothing, pretending all were clean. But come Monday morning, Mother told of the monster faced, an old-fashioned washer, wringer threatened any finger that came close. A line hung outside nearby. She declared made clothing smell fresh, air-dried sheets, blankets, and towels. My mother remembers living 5 flights up in Washington Heights, New York. Somehow she still strung her clothesline from bathroom to kitchen. A pulley helped recreate the smell. Her clothespin bag kept handy, but scared her eldest daughter each time, hoping all would comply. Carefully pinned sheets and towels, catching the morning breeze, knowing in her heart one mistake, broken clothesline, found too late in this routine ritual, would find her walking briskly downstairs, gaining access to uncommon alleyways between buildings, hoping the item still there, maybe only mildly soiled, still it would be rewashed, hung up again on mother's clothesline, where she sought the smell she remembered, brought with her up from Alabama, fondly held in her southern memories, she tried to recapture every single time. Each poem is testimony, some memory refusing to remain silent, younger selves still left behind somewhere in time, tending to trauma like an unseasoned meal, simmering without knowing nothing will ever follow. Abuse does not elicit apology or regret sometimes, so the poet applies generously words like salve to wounds still needing to heal, remembering poetry always serves as healing or declaration. And my final one is this one. As voluptuously as the moon is full, I celebrate getting older. My gray strands indicate I have done battle. They are my medals of survival, scars born from victories and defeats. They accompany my breasts, now enjoying their retirement, know the time for nourishment has passed. For them, pride appears nowadays in their resting place, communing with a belly full of years, devouring moments, lessons learned. Lucille Clifton pays homage to her hips, often thanking mine, cushions for my current comfort, celebrating every inch of me, reminders of where I have come from, what I have come through, and how looking at the full moon holds envy no more. Happy New Year, everyone.
Oh, those are wonderful. Happy New Year to you, and thank you so much for sharing. And our next reader is Tom.
Hello, everyone. I'm slightly being interrupted by a dog right now. This is Mushroom, but I will try and read you some poems. These are both from my collection of stories about monsters, and this first one is about the Striga. The Striga is an Eastern European monster who exists within a human. And if that human has a traumatic life, and particularly if that human was born with teeth when they were first born, that might be indication that they might become a striga later. So this is striga. We were born ready to bite. Our mother feared to suckle us. So sharp were our teeth, so pointed, so bright, but still we tried hard to be good. Well, a part of us did. Her, not me. There were always two parts to us, you see. The dutiful daughter was never enough, not for them. Though she tried, they said they could see my gleam in her eyes. It wasn't their fault, she would say. Of course they were cruel to her, to me. They never asked for a child with a demon inside. I offered to lend her my hunger, my rage, but she said that she wanted their love. She refused. So she lived her life patiently, hated, abused, and I, who'd have fought every battle for her, always trapped in a cage, but they knew I was there. They had seen that first smile, seen that razor-sharp grin. They told her that they knew exactly what waited within. Then the plague came. I really believe they were glad when we sickened, although they pretended to all of the neighbours to be very sad, but the look in her, my mother's face, it wasn't exactly disguised. That's the last thing that we ever saw, the relief in our own mother's eyes, because yes, the plague took us. At least it took her, the good girl, the daughter who tried to hide her double nature. She died and left me alone, suffocating, the cage she built to keep them safe from me disintegrating. And now I am free. I am no longer us, I am me. And perhaps if our parents had shown any love for their double-souled child, perhaps after all I could still rise above all the anger and sorrow and urge to attack. But they didn't. She's gone. And now I'm coming back. And I've just got one more poem. This is something that I think there's quite a few Americans in the chat, so this is one that you might know as well. This is Bloody Mary, famed from summer camps around the world. I'm watching you, not just in mirrors, but always in mirrors, in any reflection. A window, your laptop, the screen you are watching right now, there. You see me? Not quite, not entirely. That movement behind you, peripheral vision, your face, and then something you can't quite account for. Perhaps you've imagined it. That's where I'm waiting. And wouldn't you like to be sure, to be certain you're not going crazy? There really was something. Don't worry. It's easy. You just have to call me. You know that you want to. You know that you're wandering. Just say my name. Say it over and over. I'm here in the mirror, but you've got to call me or you'll never know. And you know you like knowing. So give it a try. What's the worst that could happen? Just call me. Just call me. I'm waiting. I'm waiting. Thank you very much.
Oh, wow, Tom. Wonderful readings. Thank you so much. And our next reader is Gloria.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Yvonne. I'm Gloria Galloway from Sacramento, California, United States, and I'll be reading from my novel coming out February 20th. It's titled Amber's Way. It's a young girl's journey through cancer. It chronicles her parents' storybook romance, her diagnosis at age 4, remission, and then its return at age 13. So chapter 1, Stanford, California, 2004. The irritating ringtone of her Nokia woke Jessica from a sound sleep. She tried to ignore it. When she finally glanced at her watch, it was 1 a.m. She'd gone to sleep with her head on the open pages of the California Bar Prep book. Disoriented, a vague memory of her dream came back to her, standing in front of a jury for closing arguments in the nude. She snatched up her phone and barked, "This better be life or death important." "Brian? Do I sound like a Brian to you?" "Wrong number." "No, wait. Don't hang up, please." She hesitated, oddly aware of welcoming the distraction of some random stranger calling her. He had a Tom Hanks quality to his voice. Really, who could hang up on Tom? She was wide awake now, and the thought of returning to the workbook was fleeting. She moved to her bed and propped up her pillows. "Do you always call Brian at 1 a.m, she asked in a teasing voice. "Sorry I woke you." "It's okay. but why not hang up and call Brian? He laughed. She grumbled. Right, dumb question. What's your name? I don't give out personal information to strangers over the phone. So let's get to know each other. I'll start. Daniel S. Langston, Jr., E2, 999999999. Is that supposed to be your name, rank, and serial number? You're in the military? Yep, the United States Army. The E2 stands for private second class, and the nines, well, my serial number's classified. Private lines, call me Danny. Now it's your turn. Says who, she thought as she asked, are you at boot camp? Nope. I'm in my first week of advanced training in Houston, Texas. What color's your hair? Thinking it over, she decided her hair color was hardly a state secret. Some would call it strawberry blonde. Are you an only child? Strawberry, my favorite fruit. And no, I have two sisters. Chloe is the oldest, Ginny's in the middle, and I'm the youngest. You? I have my sister Lexi. Sort of. I mean, we grew up in the foster system. She paused, lost in her memories. She didn't catch what he said next. I'm sorry, what did you say? The foster system. That must have been rough. It wasn't bad. Lexi and I were lucky. We were in one home until we aged out. We had a roof over our heads, food in our bellies, and clothes on our back. Howard Grayson, the man who fostered us, was on disability from a job injury. Vera, his wife, was a housefrau. We had no illusions about being a real family. The Graysons took us in because the state paid on our behalf, and they needed the money. But they weren't unkind. Lexi and I became our own version of family. We aren't sisters by blood. We're far more than that. We're sisters of the heart, the best kind. Remembering those early years brought a lump to her throat. She swallowed hard and sought to lighten the mood. So, the baby of the family, huh? Did you always want to be in the military? Nope. My first choice was to become a doctor, maybe a gynecologist. She laughed and he joined in. A close second was astronaut, right up until I discovered there were no toilets on those rocket ships. Really? Yeah, really. I was totally disillusioned. Alan Shepard peed his pants the first time out. I'm not kidding. Look it up. The flight was supposed to last 15 minutes. They didn't take into account how long he'd be suited up on the launch pad. And then there was the infamous floating turd incident in 1969.
Oh, Gloria, thank you so much for sharing that, for reading to us, and for giving us a smile.
We needed that.
Yes, indeed. And our next reader is Kevin.
Hi, I'm Kevin. I live on the edge of the Lake District. Can you hear me? Sorry. Yeah. I thought I'd go literary, and the photo behind me, that white building, is the last house that Percy Bysshe Shelley lived in. So there we go. That was my summer. But I'm going to have to just go to a different screen to read this off. So just bear with me one moment. Now, this is called Desiderium. And Desiderium is a nostalgia for things that might have been. And it's partly inspired by a favorite song lyric that I always get wrong. The line is, the strange things we never forget. And I always remember it as the strangers we never forget. And I've discussed this with the songwriter, and he says it works either way for him. But, anyway, this is Desiderium. I remember this, waking on a motorway service roadside on a hot summer morning, sitting on Kilronan Quay, watching jellyfish, listening to Arabic punk rock, walking into Red Square at midnight, an autobahn tunnel surrounded by trees, you tugging my beard to kiss me, how you so easily undressed for my camera, that first brief conversation feeling like lifelong friends. I can picture it all. That particular time we made love on the roof. that slow dance to REO Speedwagon. That bench near the station where you said, "Shut up and kiss me," and gave me no choice. I cannot forget those 14-page letters we wrote every day. The hours stood talking at the hotel bar. You invited me in, but I said, "I don't drink coffee," telling you I'd slept with her. The midnight phone calls for hours. The way you looked at him. I don't remember anyone looking at me the way they do in the movies. Ever feeling that I was being loved. Ever knowing it was right. And then, just to lighten the mood, a brief story about a dragon. "Hello, George," said the dragon. "Hello, dragon," said George. "Why so glum?" "Well, you know how it is," said the dragon. "There aren't any virgins around here anymore." Said George. "Does it have to be a virgin?" "Well," said the dragon, virgins and dragons go together like horse and wagons, really. So they say." Said George again. "But won't I do?" But, spluttered the dragon, smoke coming from his nostrils. "You're not a virgin." "No," said George, taking off all her clothes. And there we have it.
Oh, Kevin, thank you so much it's been so long since I've heard you read. It's such a joy.
Thank you. It's lovely to see you.
It's lovely to see you too.
I must make it over to the other side of the Pennine sometime soon.
It is just right across the bridge and like through some mountains and underneath an overpass and an underpass, and then you're right there. But you're welcome to Dewsbury anytime.
You have it on the wrong night, though. I can't get back for work the next morning.
And if you weren't like streaming on Facebook right now, you could say that you were not feeling well in advance the next day. But I feel like this would be evidence, so you probably don't want to say that. But I will let you know when we have an event that's hopefully not on a day when you have to go to work. So I'm going to read mine, and that way we have time before the start of the new year to just, after I read, I'll say a few words and then we can unmute and everybody can just, talk. But so here's mine. Quick introduction. I'm a writer, podcaster, event host, and I'm the academic director of creative writing at Cambridge University Institute of Continuing Education. My second novel, Curdle Creek, will be published by Dialogue Books in the UK, Henry Holt in the US in October, so just in time for Halloween 2025. While I'm writing and doing events, I do a lot of traveling, a lot more now than I ever thought I would. And so this piece is inspired by something else I do a lot more than I probably ever thought I ever would, which is getting lost. I was on my way to a workshop, and this is what happened before it. It's called Not Every Door is a Door. I get off the train, follow the people in front of me to what I hope is the way out of the building. There are signs everywhere. Signs for platforms and restrooms and no smoking in the tram. Signs for see it, say it, sorted. I don't actually see one that says exit or way out. I follow the footsteps, the scraping of feet, dragging of metal along asphalt, rubber on concrete. Like a kid in a parade, I march into the lights. Outside, the air is fresh, crisp. The breeze would bring comfort, welcoming after hot summer days, but the days have been getting colder, and I'm not wearing a jacket, which is weird because I checked the forecast before stepping outside the warm house into the early morning, as jacketless then as I am right now. For a moment, I picture myself walking to the campus. Now, that's even though the person who gave me the directions that I'm not reading now wrote to recommend that I take the tram to the stop nearest the university, which, though nearest the university, is actually a 15-minute walk that includes a hill that they're on the top of, or as she called it, a hill, I'm afraid. Now, truth be told, I stopped reading well before the words, I'm afraid, and right after the words, a hill. So I'm only half able to picture myself looking for the right tram, figuring out how, where, and what to pay, knowing when to get off, tumbling out of the tram, wheezing and puffing and wheezing and stopping and wheezing and trying to catch my breath as I slowly make my way up the hill in shoes not quite right for it, but cute nonetheless. I can't see the rest of it. My arriving dripping with sweat to the top of a hill. I tell the taxi driver where I'm going. Where? He asks. The other taxi driver, the one not taking me where I'm going, knows exactly where it is. He's like a GPS giving landmarks and distances. Mine asks, near this? No, by that, the other responds. It takes less than a minute, and my taxi driver declares, I'll find it. I picture myself driving around and around and around Nottingham, becoming a bit of an expert, a connoisseur of roundabouts and wrong turns and one-way streets. 11 pounds later, and we're in front of the building. I'm nearly 2 hours early. I have plenty of time to walk around the campus, to rest leisurely on a park bench, to look at the map someone sent me to find the building with the coffee house named after an American city that the students seem to love. But I'm not quite the sort of person who will spend 2 hours strolling spontaneously through campuses. It's something I'd plan for. Schedule. Spontaneity does not come without careful planning. I step down the stairs to what looks like the door. It's silver. There's a keypad next to it. There's a sign about a code that I don't have. There's no handle to jiggle, no doorknob to turn, no bell to ring. This must be the side of the building, I think. I walk down the path to the edge of the building and turn left. There are plenty of glass doors, all closed. There's do not enter signs above, next to, in some cases on each one. I take a moment to consider how ridiculous this is because it is, the more I walk around the building, getting ever more ridiculous that I can't find a way inside. As I round corner 2, I picture people inside the building wondering if this is some sort of exercise trend, and if it is, why I'm not better dressed for it. By corner 3, I'm pretty sure I hear a knock on a window. It's coming from inside the building. I imagine a person holding a large, twirly enter here sign. I do not look back. Now, I've rounded another corner. I've lost count of corners. I cut across the grass, and I'm standing in front of 2 brick pillars. I'm not sure what it is about them that says enter. Perhaps it's the iron gate. It's slightly ajar, half closed, but half open, depending on how you look at it. It's not the bird perched above one of them, head slightly tilted, odd-shaped beak jutting into the sky. Good morning, I say to the bird. It would be rude not to, what with the bird and its beak standing sentry, practically, well, not guarding, not looking, but semi-ignoring me from not so high above. In the sunlight, or now that I'm closer in any light, I see what looked like an odd-shaped beak is only odd because it's overflowing with worms. I wonder if they fell for the odd-shaped beak line too. Inside, the courtyard is lush, green. There's a walkway that's a little oddly placed since there are benches where you'd walk, meaning you have to walk on the grass, which feels like trespassing in a way that my walking through it up to the open glass door leading to, well, the closer I get, it looks like someone's office. There's a desk on one side and another desk on the other. There's the soft glow of computer screens. It looks like it's empty, but you know how you just know there's someone in there? I feel it, which is odd that I would feel anything at this point and trust it the way that I do, but I feel it. Excuse me, I call. No response. Excuse me, I say it louder this time. There's a jump. I imagine him clutching his hand to his heart, gasping in a way that should not, but does make me giggle. I thought I heard someone, he says, slightly out of breath. Come in, come in. It sounds like a welcome, warm and inviting, like he was waiting for someone to slip through his window, which turns out is not a door. I step through the window and he locks it behind me. Then he beckons me to come to the kitchen for a cup of tea. The old me, the one who would not accept tea from strangers, even if she had popped into their office uninvited, would also not have walked in through a window. This me, the more spontaneous, dare I say reckless, imaginative one that walks through every opportunity, well, she says yes. So thank you so much for joining us and celebrating the new year. Before I open it up to everyone, I'd like to say, if you'd like to attend more online storytelling open mics, please join me for the Cambridge University Creative Writing Center at the Institute of Continuing Education's monthly open mic nights. It's a new year, time for a new open mic, right? So they'll be on the last Wednesday of the month. The first one is Wednesday, January 31, 7 to 8 p.m. I'm in London, so UK time. For more information or to sign up for an open mic slot, email creativewriting@ice.cam.ac.uk. That's creativewriting@ice.cam.ac.uk. And I'm going to be the first to wish everyone a Happy New Year. If you are in or around Dewsbury, you already hear fireworks. It's like a Dewsbury thing. I feel like we are the firework capital of the world. So I'm going to invite everyone to unmute and we can celebrate one another and hear fireworks, I guess, from around the world.
Thank you, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. It was lovely.
Good
Happy
reading.
New Year.
Do it
Happy
again.
New Year,
Thank you so much,
everybody.
everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New
Year.
Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And thank you, Yvonne.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for coming. Thank you for reading. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you all for celebrating New Year's. Just what do I don't know. There's something about stories that just makes it special. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I just repeat what I said somewhere else on the thing for 2024?
Sure.
May you find peace when you need it, passion when you want it, and love always.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Beautiful.
Oh,
And the
Yvonne,
same to you. Yes.
you said something about that open mic you were talking about on the 31st.
Yes, it is January 31st.
Oh,
so
could you send something out or
I can. I don't. So the way that I can reach you is the way that if you signed up through Eventbrite, I can send an email through there. If you signed up through, if you contacted me through like Facebook, I can message you through there.
Okay. I'll do
But
that.
how about if so the email address that I'm putting in there, that's the creative writing admin team. They're absolutely wonderful. but I can also put my email address. So this one is the creative writing team.
Right.
And I will put my Cambridge one, .ac.uk, which is just my name. Well, I say it like that, right? So it's Yvonne Battle-Felton. And then it's at ICE, which is Institute of Continuing Education, .cam, which is Cambridge, .ac.uk. But you can message me on any platform that I'm on, that you're on. So I am on Twitter or X at Battle-Felton. I'm on Facebook with my name, or Instagram with Why I Write Battle-Felton. So feel free to message like anywhere, and
okay,
I can send you the link.
Thank you.
You're
Have
welcome.
you moved on to Blue Sky yet, Yvonne?
Yes and no. I am on there rather badly. I think I'm making a career of being on different social media platforms, and that and Threads, I feel like are one that I haven't invested enough time to fully understand. Are you on Blue Sky, Kevin?
I'm on Blue Sky, and I have Blue Sky invites, so I was going to offer you one if you hadn't got one. But yes, I find I keep forgetting that I'm on Blue Sky, but when I do go on it, it's like early Twitter.
Yeah,
so
it's like Twitter when it was good.
Yeah.
I don't, but every time I go on there, I feel like I'm in the middle of someone else's conversation, or someone else's, I guess. Yeah, I don't even know, but I just feel like they're
It's because
already
you don't know many
mid-conversation.
people on there yet. It feels like when you were early on Twitter as well as being like early Twitter.
Yeah, that's probably what it was. And now when I'm on Twitter, I started out using Twitter competitively. And my daughter, because she doesn't even remember this, but it was like, I don't even know, whatever year it was, but it was a dark and stormy night. And she was like, oh, look, I have more Twitter followers than you. And I'm not even competitive like that. But I feel like as soon as she said it, I was like, huh, we'll see. And
Yeah, you say you're not competitive, Yvonne, but that is just so you.
Well, may I just say that yes, now I do have more followers than her. But of course, it's because they're going to be like, I don't know, the next platform is going to be taken over and I have to start all over again. And I just don't see myself being competitive on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
No, you don't need to be. It's nice it's very much more chilled out.
Yeah.
Than Twitter.
See,
but it hasn't got that. We've all got used to the toxicity now on Twitter.
Yeah, I just need that competitive something to that that reason that compels me on. And you're right, it could be the wholesome conversations. I will see what I can do. I will drink some coffee and do deep breathing and then give Blue Sky a real try in 2024.
Happy New Year.
I think that's what I'm going to do.
Happy New Year, everybody.
English people and British
Happy
people.
New Year.
Check out.
Night. Have a good one. Thank you.
We're in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Happy New Year for like 5 hours or whatever it is for people in America.
Thank you.
And that's the East Coast.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm thinking East Coast.
But I'm going to say just thank you so much again for celebrating New Year's with me and for spending this time, for your stories and your poems, for the singing, just everything. I really appreciate you all. It was such a special time, and I can't wait to do it all again next year.
Bye-bye. Have a good one. 2024.
Goodbye.
Have a great year, everybody. Stay safe.
2024. Stay safe.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Good
and
night.
if you joined us on Facebook, bye everybody on Facebook as well.
Good night. Happy
Good
New
night,
Year.
Mom. Happy New Year. Thanks for coming.
You're
Everyone
welcome.
and everyone else. Good night, good night, good night.
Yvonne, was that our Kevin?
It was
that our
Kevin.
Kevin?